we have got another edition of getting into some specific tactics that I want to talk about, and that is spells. I think a lot of people have given me feedback about how they feel spells are weak in OPR. I think some of that feedback isn't quite as relevant now because with 3.4.1 we did get a pretty big buff to spells. But I do want to address some of the concerns and some of the questions about spells. I think spells in a one-page rule, and I'm probably going to be dealing with Grimdark Future, although I think spells are actually more powerful in Age of Fantasy. It's just due to the ability to really be able to protect spellcasters much easier in the game. I'll be dealing with Grimdark Future, but I mean, a lot of the things I'm going to be saying are going to apply to Age of Fantasy as well. What I really want to get into with spells is I have, just from the comments I've gathered, felt that a lot of people, and some of the bat reps I do see online, where I feel they're doing spells wrong. And we're going to get into how I think that you can use spells effectively and how you can win effectively. I do want to provide a caveat that this presentation is sort of lopsided to certain armies. I am going to agree that I think there's a lot of people who feel spells are weak because for their army they have a very bad spell list. It doesn't synergize well with the army. I'm hoping that can get reworked with this new. We hear redesigns are coming, but for now, one, I think it's going to show you that if you build a custom or use that, maybe adding in some good spells are going to really help. I'm mainly going to be addressing some of the armies that I feel have very powerful spells and how to use them. And if you play against those armies, how to counter it. Because as we're going to see in here, spells, if you're not used to playing against an army that can use spells, it can really be a very quick loss for you because you're going to get caught off guard. So with that, we're going to get into it. Just real quick, do the YouTube scruff, like, subscribe, and comment. Hopefully I can answer your questions. And hopefully this can both benefit you. So I'll be talking about it from the perspective of a person using spells. But this is also really good to watch when you face armies that do have good spells, and you're going to sort of understand what they're going to try to do, and hopefully you can counter that. So let's just get into the overall strategies. So first of all, spells. The first thing that I would say around spells is you have to build your armies around them. You have to build, to just sort of put spells in as an afterthought. It's much better actually to just go with a different upgrade than using spells. Spells are sort of expensive enough that you really have to, one, you have to invest in them, and two, you have to have an army that works with them. Because, so for instance, if you don't have good spells, they're certainly not worth taking. But even if you do have good spells, you have to have, your army has to work around it. Then we're going to talk about some of the ideas about protecting your spellcasters or not. And then this is partially, it's about, one of the things I say about a good spell heavy army, that you can actually force your opponent to play around them. We'll talk about that. And then we're also going to talk about spells as a comeback mechanic and why I like them, especially in competitive play. All right, so the first big thing that I would tell with spells is that you really need to invest in about 3 to 6 spell tokens a turn in limited cases. There's some caveats, but so it is an investment of generally around 6 to 90 to 120 points. So that's, a decent amount of points. And that's why I always say you need to build your army around them. You have to invest into spells so that you have enough spell tokens to consistently get off the spell on generally a 2+, maybe a 3+. The other side of it, and I'll get into specific armies, you want to use a combo mechanic. Spells, one of their big advantages is that it allows, it's very difficult to play around because your opponent, since you can put these buffs generally, and it's generally talking about buffs, that you can put these buffs on any of the army's units, That is the real flexibility and the power of spells. Traditional upgrades, for the most part, you generally, one, they don't have the impact that a lot of spells can get, and two, oftentimes it's very limited just the single unit. So an opponent can like target that one unit, and like for instance, if you bring like an AP +1 upgrade on a unit, or if you bring, something, your opponent knows where that is in the army and they can kind of target it. Spells, it's harder to do. So the first thing, and I'll talk about this in specific armies, your army should be built with the spells being required. Now, I do understand there is some consistency issues there, but for the most part, rolling that 2 up, it's generally going to be fine, especially if you can get it off over 2 turns. I mean, like, one of the things that I always say is that this game is a dice game, and that, if you roll bad in one area, you're going to roll bad in another. Generally speaking, working to get those key spells off on a 2 up is going to be consistent enough, especially if, because you usually can wait a turn or two if you build your army right. And we'll get into how you build your army. The next thing is, this is an interesting one. Protect your spellcasters, or don't. So the implied, and we're going to get into this. So for one, I don't like to run spellcasters in units for the most part. There is exceptions. And I actually have one of those exceptions in one of my armies. But for the most part, I want my spellcasters to be squishy. I want them to be cheap. And I want them to be just hiding around. I want them to be annoying. That actually does 2 things. One, you can really work to protect your spellcasters. The other side of it is that the or don't. Or you can keep your spellcasters far away from the army and basically force an opponent to invest a lot of resources, like a 400 or 500 point unit, to kill a 60, 70, 80, 90 point caster. So that's the other side of it, is that you actually can use your casters as this threat and sort of force your opponent to invest, a very key activation in taking them out. So there's a lot going on here. Just keep that in mind with when I'm talking about your casters. Be willing to put your caster in a predicament where maybe you're forcing an opponent to kill your caster, but you're removing them from an objective. So that sort of thing, right? Or you can do the opposite side and just really keep them close to the army and make it very difficult for your opponent to kill them. The next thing, I think that going back into it, one of the big things that, like, and I give an example here, and I'll talk about it, and it's two of my forces, and I've used both of these armies to great efficiency, is using the flying upgrade. Those flying spells are just ridiculous, and they're ridiculous because you can actually put them on any of your units. It's unlike a lot of units that come with flying where your opponent can kind of know what they're doing. By having that ability to put flying on multiple different units at any time, you are really forcing your opponent to make inefficient moves. And we'll talk about this when I go into some of the armies. But one of the things that spells actually can do is indirectly hurt your opponent. That is because there is this threat of spells happening. Your opponent must, for instance, play further back than they would want to, or they have to make inefficient plays. That's actually a very, when I play with and against spells, it's actually a very big deal that is oftentimes overlooked, is the threat of what you can do. And a great example I give is a flying fast unit, just hitting their back lines. The ability to give any of your units and just say, this unit I want to basically teleport into the back line, hit a key shooting unit, hit something. It's a really big deal. The other thing that I think has traditionally been thought of as a disadvantage, I actually see it as an advantage. So there is a lot of people who are like, well, I don't like spells because, you roll a 4 up and it could fail. And that's true. But there's an advantage to that in that spells are one of the real few comeback mechanics in the game. And I've played enough to see that when you're behind, that's actually an advantage. Dice happen, you make mistakes, but one of the real advantage, especially when you're bringing, 6 spell tokens a turn, 6 spell tokens is 3 damage spells. That's 3 4-ups. But then again, if you have a turn where your opponent gets lucky, oftentimes in this game, especially at lower points, you can really just sort of lose the game very fast. Spells actually provide a way to get back into the game where, like I said, bringing around 6 spell tokens a turn, that is, that is a lot of damage spells or a lot of buff spells. So what I would tell you is that anytime you're behind, spells actually give you that ability to, if you can roll just a few 4-ups, you can actually drastically change the game and bring the game back in your favor, where if you didn't have spells, you're pretty much just going to lose. So when I hear people say that it's inconsistent, what I would tell you is use spells, use that 4-up to your advantage. If ever you feel you're behind, if ever you feel that, it's looking like you're not going to win, take those chances. Take those chances on those multiple 4-ups, and it could actually cause you to win a game that you probably lose otherwise. All right, so let's get into some army lists. I know I've kind of covered some lists. I want to kind of show you some of the ideas about where I've used spells to be very, very powerful. I mean, the first of which I always talk about is Alien Hives. And, Alien Hives, I think, are just a real annoying army to me because they can do so many things that, like, there are units in Alien Hives that people don't bring that would be auto-included in other armies. Like, they're an army that just has so much, and it annoys me that other armies don't get, like, other armies I feel just haven't been invested in. And if there's something I would really encourage, if OPA is watching, really take the time on the other armies and, give them some of the flexibility and the abilities that because Alien Hives actually have some of the best casters in the game. I'm going to show you one of these ways of doing it. Just to, of course you could do the Hive Lore thing, yeah. But I actually want to show you some other ways to play them. One of which is this one. This is the Synapse Tyrant. This Synapse Tyrant is crazy good. He's crazy good to 250 points. This is the ultimate support character. He's got Caster 3, Stealth, which is great. I've given this guy Pheromones, so he can move things 6 inches, and he's got Regenerator. Regenerator giving units +1 to their regen rolls. Now you're going to notice a lot of my units don't have regen, and that's because it's a spell-heavy list. This one guy here for 250 does so much, and then he's got a dual-tapping heavy blast with Stealth. The ultimate support character, like, very frustrating. Why do Alien Hives get the Synapse Tyrant? This guy's bonkers good, and he'd be an auto-included in any other armies, but because other of their lists are just so stinking crazy, he's not even included. But no, this guy's great. Again, really would encourage the OPA to just look at some of the craziness that goes on in Alien Hives and maybe split it up, or like maybe move that away. So we've got the Synapse Tyrant, the ultimate, probably the best support character in the game, especially with that Stealth and the 18-inch. He can actually do so much in a turn. Casting, Pheromones, Regenerator, and then he shoots. Yeah, it's nuts. All right, double Assault Grunts, a sort of a mid-level unit. I then have a combined squad of Psycho Grunts. What are these guys doing? They're 60 points. They've got that Spell Warden on them. That is basically, each of these units can go, and they can give the Synapse Tyrant or the Synapse Beast, the 2 main casters, that +1 to their casting roll. Now, one thing you're going to see in this army is a max activation army. That means it's an activation stalling army. The whole point of this army is, generally speaking, to have a lot of trash activations. The first thing you can do is hide everything. Then you've got those Psycho Grunts who can go. You don't even have to use the ambush on the Hive Swarms, which are sort of auto-includes. In other words, on certain armies, don't even ambush your Hive Swarms. Just lay them out on turn 1. Use them in an activation spam. So you've got all these smaller activations here. And then the other side of it is you've got the 10-man unit of Soul Snatchers that also have Caster 1. That's 2 tokens. And I just want to get into it. These Soul Snatchers can, on their activation, cast Flying on themselves and another unit with Scout and Fast, and just 16 inches on turn 1, 1 activation, fly into the back line and delete something. Like, these Soul Snatchers are ridiculous. They're the best elite infantry in the game, and one of the reasons is because they can do this sort of crazy nonsense. Where, and I'll show you the spells, it's the level 2 flying spell, where you can just, and remember, these guys, they can pull different caster tokens from the Synapse Beast and the Tyrant to give it a 2-up. And they're just going to fly, and that ability alone, that threat, is really going to make some tough decisions for your opponent. Because one, they either have to play around it, or two, if they don't play around it, they're just going to lose a key unit, right? They're just going to have a teleporting Soul Snatcher unit that are going to be hiding behind, sight obscuring terrain and scout, and they can just attack any unit they want. So the Hive Swarms, we already talked about that. They're great for Chef. Then we've got a 6-man unit of Ravenous Beasts. These guys are just terrific. They've scouted up as well. They've got Fast and Strider. They also can be given the flying upgrade and just fly into a unit and just murder it. And one of the things I would say is all these armors are built at 2,000. Spells are so good at 2,000 because 2,000, it's a reason that I don't like the point total, is about taking out a key unit. And each of these armies that I'm showing you, they're all sort of surgical strike armies. They're all sort of built to take out one key unit. And then the game's sort of just going to snowball downhill from there. So that's what the Soul Snatchers and Ravenous Beasts are there to do. They're there to hide, scout up, and then basically be sent flying somewhere. Then we've got finally more caster in this army. We've got the Synapse Beasts. And again, Synapse Beasts are so annoying that they're in Alien Hives. This is one of the best units in the game that have stealth. They've got 6 shooting shots with blast, and then they've got 6 spell tokens a turn. So this is, and so let's just get into this as well. So what do we have? This is all because all these things are here to, one, we're giving out the -1 morale, which is already great. 2, you're handing out those flying. That flying, I don't think in competitive we should have flying spells. They are so ridiculous. They are crazy good in what you can do. And then the final thing, we've got the regen. All these units, you can be handing out 3 regen, 2 flying, and then morale minuses on a unit. This army is just going to hit like an absolute truck. It's going to be so problematic to deal with because you've got those Soul Snatchers and those Ravenous Beasts that are going to be given flying. You can give them regen. One, you can first strike, but the other thing you can do is just actually activation stall. You can move your Hive Swarms. You can move those Psycho Grunts. You can move all these different units to buff up things. And, of course, you still have the pheromones. If 16 inches isn't long enough, remember that Synapse Tyrant can pheromones up one of these units. And then you have a 22-inch threat range. One of either the Soul Snatchers or the Ravenous Beasts can basically teleport 22 inches in turn 1, hit a unit, and murder it. And it's going to be that key unit. And then it's just, the game will just sort of snowball from there. It's an oppressive army. It's a ridiculous army. I would encourage you, unless you're playing in a tournament game, don't play this army because it's not fun to play against. Your opponent won't enjoy it. And it's very difficult to deal with. And I have played this army different iterations. It's nasty. It's just nasty. Alien Hives are just, there's a reason they're still an S tier army. And I think they're the best caster army in addition to everything else, the best caster army in the game. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous army. All right, let's get into Battle Brothers. More of a traditional army here. And with Battle Brothers, you're pretty much, so the first thing you're doing is, this is pretty straightforward. You've got a Master Destroyer. He's got a Caster 3. He's coming in with Ambush. So on turn 2, he's going to have 6 Caster tokens. He is running with those 6-man Destroyers. So it's going to be, he's got 8 Energy Claw attacks. We've got 24 more. It's 32 Energy Claw attacks. They're going to cast that level 3 Time Passage. It's going to be 32 Rending AP3, and you're just going to delete something. You're going to absolutely delete something. We then have 3 units of Pathfinders with shotguns. Just sort of a mid-level chaff, but they're still really good. I've got a 10-mana unit of Battle Brothers if I have 2 Flamers on them. Just a really good mid-level unit. And again, one of the things you're seeing I'm doing here, I've got a lot of, this is going the opposite of the Alien Hives. This is a very small amount of activations. Everything in this army is meant around you're going first on turn 2. You're dropping those destroyers, and they are deleting something, right? We've then got a 6-man unit of support brothers, and what I'm doing with them is I'm giving them 5 plasma cannons and then a heavy machine gun. So this is a unit itself that on turn 1 can just delete a unit. It can just delete a unit. Now, regarding monsters, that's why you have the destroyers and master destroyer here. This army is really good. I mean, this is, I think, sort of a quintessential competitive elite Battle Brothers army. And there's a reason that I've combined the Battle Brothers and Support Brothers into combined squads. I want as few activations as possible. But at 2,000, I have 2 surgical. I have the Support Brothers and Destroyers are meant to take out 2 key units. And from there, it should just snowball down from there. Those destroyers won't have anything left to kill, or that's going to kill them. So they're just pretty straightforward. Let's just look at the Battle Brothers again. Everything in this army is about casting that level 3 time passage on turn 2. You're going to have 6 spell tokens. You're going to get that off in a 2-up. Everything else is sort of gravy. I think Cursed Ground is still really useful. In other words, you don't have, there's a lot of different things you can do in the army. Cursed Ground is still really good against maybe like an Alien Hives player, where you can, if you don't need the AP on the charge, you can just kill a unit, cast the Cursed Ground, and then stop a counter charge. So still really good. The blurred side is situational, but has its uses. But I think that you're really counting on time passage to take out something big, and Cursed Ground to stop a counter charge. So this army is really solid. I mean, I think this is a nice tournament level Battle Brothers army. Really good. All right, let's get into an exception to the rule, but Human Defense Force. So Human Defense Force, this is just like Alien Hives max activations. This is an activation spam army. And what this army is basically trying to do, 2 company leaders, they're running by themselves, both have Warning Cry. That's really great. So they actually can be on the flanks, hiding in a corner and just basically extending your ambush range. Yeah, what are they doing? Well, one of them has a caster through. All he's trying to do is get that +1 to hit on 3-up. It's pretty consistent. And then you've got the other guy who's got Take Aim. And the whole point of this army, you've got 2 units of recruits. You've got some robots there as activation spams. You've got 2 10-mans of veterans with shotguns, which I think are great. And all you're trying to do in this army, you're basically activation spamming. You're going to pick either the sappers or the heavy tank. And you're going to give either of those 2 units +2 to hit. On turn 1, it's probably going to be the heavy tank. On turn 2+, probably going to be the sappers. And we'll get into that. But so that's part of it. The next side I have is a 20-man unit of infantry. 400 points. They've got medical training. But look at it. So for one, this is the blast in the army. 4 grenade launchers, 2 mortars, where you can stack out a ton of blast in this army. But the other thing I think that's really cool about this unit, 2 company standards. Not 1, 2. Every turn this thing activates, it's going to hand out 4 morale buffs to the army. So you're putting it on the heavy tank, and that's actually really big, that on turn 1, you're giving out 4 +1 morales to the army. That's a really big deal. They're shooting the blast. This is a really good unit. I mean, I've played this unit before in different iterations. The infantry squad's great. 2 10-man unit of veterans. These guys are also terrific. They've got the +1 defense, so 4 4s, 20 AP1 shotguns. Great. I mean, it's a solid unit. The other thing we have is the sappers. So the sappers they're sort of used as a counter hand-to-hand tool. You're going to notice in this army, I don't really have any hand-to-hand units. The sappers are going to sort of fill that role, where against your Hive Lords, against your Destroyer units, these are units that, especially if you give them the +1 to hit, and you protect them, and you should be able to protect them because you have double Warning Cry, and you've got Chaff. I mean, these sappers, unless you're playing against someone with indirect, they're probably going to survive, and they can walk up on a 3-up and just put 6 fusion rifles. Even them standing there, they're a great counter hand-to-hand punch. so that even just hiding them, if someone charges them, they actually can then just stand there and just, use their relentless. Snipers are really solid. 190 points as well. They're not that expensive. If they die, it's not a big deal. The big linchpin of the army is the heavy tank, though. Kitted out, it's got a deadly weapon, and then it's got a lot of shooting. What you're really doing, this is sort of the linchpin of the army. You're taking your caster, which is a more minor part of the army, but it shows you, I'm thinking about this army in terms of a caster. It's a more minor part, but a lot of this caster and this take aim is about it's about giving this heavy tank a 2-up to hit. And then you've just got an absolute mountain of shots. The oppressor cannon, the Gatling gun, the auto cannon, the heavy machine guns. This thing is shooting a ton of shots on a 2-up, and it's gonna do some damage. It can generally target 2 units. So you're gonna put maybe the oppressor cannon and auto cannon into 1 unit, and you're gonna put the machine guns and Gatling gun into another unit. It's really gonna maim 2 units a turn. And you also, again, you've got the recruits, you've got the robots, you've got the veterans, you've got the chaff, and those warning cries to actually protect this heavy tank. Very good unit. Yeah, I think this is a solid HDF unit. Just showing you the human defense force. All you really care about is the +1 to hit. I think that's very rarely are you ever going to cast anything else other than that +1 to hit. Maybe on the last turn you're casting the speed, but that's very rare because he's only caster 2. Generally speaking, you're just every turn casting the +1 to hit on the 3-up. All right. Let's look at Machine Cult. Some people have questioned about whether Machine Cult are an A-tier army. They're absolutely an A-tier army. They're terrific. They're not as good as Alien Hives. They're not as good as Orc Marauders, which I have an Orc Marauders army. They're still very good. They're certainly just as good as Battle Brothers as well. Let's look at what an Orc a Machine Cult list would look like. So we have the caster 3 in there. He's pretty cheap leader, 140. Remember, they're paying 80 points, but it's worth it. He's also got a 30-inch range weapon. So actually, this cult leader can actually put some damage in with a 30-inch range weapon. Again, that caster 3, he's going to be staying in the back, and we'll talk about what he's going to be casting the +1 AP most of the time. But at caster 3, he could maybe do something else. But this guy's consistently going to be giving +1 AP to shoot. I've then got just a 5-man unit of Rangers. I've given one a flamer rifle. I had some points, so I have 2 units of Rangers. One has a flamer, the other don't. I mean, these are just solid chaff. I mean, we talked about that. Machine Cult don't have the greatest chaff, but their chaff is decent, and this is decent chaff. It's expensive, but at Defense 4 and Strider, it has some uses as well. So it's still pretty good. Combined unit of Shock Priests. These guys are great. They're just walking over there with their Furious Regen and Slayer, and these guys are just going to murder big guys. I mean, this is, truckload of attacks at AP 2. That's going to heavily maim things. We've then got 10-man unit of Sect Stalkers. These guys are great. Fast, Furious, Strider. I've got 2 of the metal spikes on them as well. Yeah, they're just great. I mean, these guys are... I've put them with the AP2 on there. So these are my 2 big hand-to-hand units that are going to... This is a shooting army, but I've got 2 nice hand-to-hand units that are going to do some damage. All right, the other side of it is we've got the Cult Leader. Cult Leader's got Cannicles, so that's +1 AP. We can combine this with the AP buff. So basically, I've joined these guys to Breacher Cyborgs. These guys can get up to +2 AP. He himself has a 36-inch range sniper rifle that can get up to AP2. That right there is solid. Like, that's really good to be able to double tap something at AP2 with sniper. It's great for taking out sergeants, great for taking out medical trainings or standards. Really good unit here. The other thing is he's joined to a Breacher Cyborg unit, and these guys are 36-inch range with rending that can get up to AP2. So the first thing I would say is that these Breacher Cyborgs at 36-inch range, they really can just basically touch anything. It's a great first strike capability that you really can just heavily maim something with just this is, 18. attacks. Yeah, they're only quality 4, but you're rending, and your AP 2. This is going to do some damage. The other thing that I really love in this army is Raider Cavalry. Raider Cavalry are just terrific. I've played them. They murder people. Scout and Fast and Strider means that on turn 1, you can move up 8 inches. You've got those P breaths and you've got those P pistols. That right there is 36 shots on 1 turn with phosphor, so you ignore. That you actually can, if you play it right, you can actually give those guys +1 AP with that cult leader. Now, usually it's too slow, but it depends on the army. You actually can do it where these Raider Cav, they basically on turn 1 can just walk up and delete a unit. 36 phosphor attacks. They ignore cover. You're just going to delete a unit on turn 1. You can also play them back. Again, you don't have to do a turn 1 charge. You could play them back, use them as a counter charge measure, and then give them that +1 AP, and then they're just walking up and just putting 36 attacks. I love the limited on them because they're probably actually going to they're sort of a suicide unit. They're going to walk up, they're going to trade up, and they're just going to delete something. They're probably going to die, but they're tough enough that opponent's going to have to invest a lot of resources in them. So that's why I love the P breaths on them. I love just getting those 2 attacks in and then just sort of using them as a quasi-suicide unit. This is a great Machine Cult army. I've played it. It's done me great. And again, what you're really doing with Machine Cult, it's all the +1 AP to hit. I think the +1 defense, I think, is rarely going to be used just because in this army, it's all about the +1 to hit when it shoots. It's a really good army. Really good army. All right, let's look at Orc Marauders. Orc Marauders, a lot like Alien Hives, are some of the best casters in the game, and we're going to talk about why. So here, what we're doing here is we've got a boss leader. He's got Warning Cry, great thing. He's got War Cry. I didn't show it, but he actually is running in the. There is a 20-man orc mob that I'll show you. He's in that unit. So he's running around. He's got that War Cry. So these guys are moving 16 inches with 20 orcs in them. They don't have any upgrades. All I've given them is a regen upgrade. I then have 3 Goblin Champs. Each of these, I actually fit in a little rocket pistol in with them. I mean, I had the spare points, and it's really worth it. These guys are so cheap. They would have been 85 without the pistols, and they're really good. All of them with Caster 3. Oh, these guys are crazy good. That's 9 caster tokens a turn. So this is enough spell tokens to do shenanigans. This is a shenanigan army. And this is basically a lot what you did with the Alien Hives. This is a flying circus army. Whether it's the Orc Mob, or it's the Ultra Bosses, or it's that Boss Mob, you have several units that you can just give flying to, and they can basically hit the back line, hit it really fast. But especially, and we're going to talk about it, the ability for orcs to get rending and flying on a unit, that's why you have 9 caster tokens in there. That on turn 1, you can hand out rending and flying to 2 units. And all of a sudden now, that orc mob, so it's just good. So we have the Goblin, we then have 2 chaff units for the Goblin Herd. Goblin Herd are great. They actually can do some respectable damage in shooting. So you got the 20-man orc mob that you're putting the rending on them. Rending on this orc mob is ridiculous. It's 40 attacks with Furious that are going to be rending. Especially with the fast, you are generally able to get most of the attacks in with the War Cry. Also, the boss leader is hitting with his claw too. It's great. I got a 10-man unit of jetpack orcs. These guys are terrific. I've got 2 flamer pistols, but these guys are mainly just walking in there with their ultra claws. You can give the rending on them as well, and they're really good with rending. I think got the boss mobs. I mean, the boss mob, you don't need them with rending. This is just the EP poor spam delete a unit army. I mean, this is boss mobs that are going to be having 8 ultra claws, and they're just going to be deleting something. You do have to hide them, but then again, the thing with this orc that's very difficult to deal with is that you have so many threats. You've got the orc mob. You've got the jetpack orcs that, by the way, you don't even have to ambush in if you don't want to. You can just put them on the table and use them as another threat. You've got the boss mob. And then you've got these ultra bosses that you have regen on where you need them. And so the problem is that yes, an opponent's generally going to be able to take out one of these units, but they're not going to be able to take out everyone. And then all you need to do is basically get those caster things on some of these units, and just have them start blowing up things. Yeah, I've got four. I've got the other combined unit of ultra bosses. These guys are running all deadly. Deadly. You can also put rending on these guys, so that each of those deadly hits are rending, so you don't get regen on them. So that's basically they're deadly that they get rending as well. So it's nasty. I mean, these guys. They also have some heavy flamer mods. I did put a little flamers here and there. I mean, just here and there if you need a shot. But yeah, this army's great. I mean, let's just look at the orc spells. The reason that you bring 9 caster, I like with them. So one, the stealth is good. I mean, stealth is a pretty nice one to have. It can come in handy. The big thing you're doing though, you're doing rending. You're putting rending on a unit, and then the other thing is all you need is really one turn, and that's that level 3 flying spell on 3 units. I mean, that's the army. It's a very difficult army to deal with, because the ability that basically you're going to get flying on the entire army of what you needed. Remember, the jetpack orcs already have flying, so you only really need to cast the spell maybe once, twice, and just have that key turn where everything in your army has flying. This is also an activation spam army where you have enough activations that a more elite force is going to run out of activations. Yeah, and then you're just casting flying and regen on several of your units, and they're just going to delete stuff. That's why I really like the 9 caster tokens in this army. It really allows you to just get what you need on turn 1, and then turn 2 is just your absolute wreck face turn. This army is a nightmare, by the way, for another hand-to-hand army. This army will delete Hive Lords. They'll delete anything. These units are going to hit so hard. Yeah. So those are some armies for spells. I hope this has really helped you. Number one, I hope this has helped you that if you are going to start playing competitive, here's some of the craziness that you're going to face. 2, maybe this helps you to understand how you can really build very awesome armies using spells. And 3, ways that, if you're not playing competitive, maybe don't use some of these armies. But, this hopefully can help you understand some of the nature and how we look at spells. Hey, would love to get your feedback. Like, subscribe, and comment. Send me your custom armies and your army lists. I'm always interested in that.